This conference will now be recorded.
All right, ready? All right. Three, two, one. What is up, everybody? Brian Mendler back in your life on another edition of the podcast. And today I am super excited, finally, to be joined by my good buddy, Dave Schmittou. What's up, man? It's good to see you. How are you?
Hey man, life is good. What's going on?
Dude, so I got to start by just apologizing to you. I know we've kind of scheduled these a couple times and I've canceled on my end and I'm sorry, man, but it's good to have you back. And actually, I wanted to just start today by asking you about a post that you did. You posted on social media. This was probably, I don't even know now. I think it was maybe a month or so ago. You posted a picture of a bridge and I think it was when you were living in Florida and
Yeah.
you um basically your caption was that, and I didn't know this at all. I know you pretty well, but I didn't know this about you, was that you were considering jumping off that bridge and you were kind of running by it. Take me through that. Take me through that whole thing and tell me a little bit about more about that.
So first of all, let me just say this is why I love your show here, man. Because we were just talking, you're like, yeah, we'll just go where we're going. You just come out swinging, so that's awesome. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. So
Tell.
so right now I'll put it all out there. I'm a 43-year-old man, four amazing kids. From the outside looking in, life is good. I mean, great career, great job, great family. At the time, I was living in the Sunshine State where the sun was shining, birds are chirping, heading to the beach all the time. But the reality is, inside, I was in a dark place for a long time, and got myself to the place where it was November 15th, 2017. I found myself at 2 a.m. Standing on top of a bridge. There's this bridge that um, travels the border between Florida and Alabama. I pulled into a parking spot at a little marina at the bottom of the bridge, walked to the top, and stood there for a while, staring at the sky, staring at the water, and wondering if anybody would even know if I took a step. Really contemplating if I was making a difference, if I mattered, um, if if it was all worth it. Stood there for I honestly have no idea how long. Even to this day, I couldn't tell you what prompted me to walk back. The next thing I knew, I was literally standing there staring at the water, listening to the waves. And next thing I knew, I was back in my car driving home. I don't know what prompted me to drive home. I, I kept it a secret for about 6 weeks before I told anybody what took place. And I've been on this journey ever since, trying to uncover and unpack what led me to that point. And I've got a lot of answers now. I understand what led me down that journey. And I mean, I could trace it all the way back to childhood and my need to try to always keep up and put up this facade. You know, I've shared some things before. Back in third grade, I got the label of gifted, which is an amazing thing. But I honestly trace a lot of my demons back to getting that label and feeling like from that moment on, life was supposed to be easy for me. Nothing was ever supposed to be a struggle. I was supposed to always have the answers. And when I didn't, it was always somebody else's fault, or I had to put up this front and this facade to act like I had it all together. And when life just got hard and I did not know how to navigate it, instead of trying to push through it, I got myself to this place where I said, okay, maybe I'll just give up because it's supposed to be easy and it's not. So let's just leave. And it was I'm grateful for the last 3 years where I've been able to climb out of it. And that post you're referring to was actually me going back and conquering that demon and going for a run across that bridge, saying, "Look, I'm in control now. I can go over it and come back and be in control of where I go."
Wow. What was the feeling like when you were running over it?
There were a lot of tears, man. I'll be honest with you. It was the middle of the day. There's traffic going by both sides. I was sweating profusely, and I was just unloading. I don't know if it was tears of gratitude, if it was tears of shame. Nobody knew I was even going for that run. I just said I was going to go for a run, and that's where I went. And I knew that I was going to go conquer that demon and convince myself that I could do it. I hadn't been back to that spot in 3 years since that night. I had avoided it like the plague. But I said, I feel like I'm at this place now where I need to do something that it's symbolic. It didn't mean anything other than I'm in control. I can take one step at a time
Sure.
and go over it, come back. And the tears were just flowing. And I took some pictures afterwards, and I was at this place, so I thought, okay, now it's time for me to share my journey because I'm sure it can help somebody else.
I find it really interesting that you say you really trace it back to being in third grade and getting the label of gifted because we use labels in school all the time and I was the opposite, right? I was labeled special ed when I was a kid, and it's like I think whichever label you get can drive you in a different direction. What was it about the gifted label that made you feel, I mean, it makes sense really what you said, right? This need to, like, I'm gifted, oh, everything must be great, right? I must be really good at everything, and you start believing that about yourself.
Right, and that's exactly what it was. So, like I said, I'm 43, so third grade, what are you, 8 years old?
Yep.
So this had been this journey for 30 something years of me truly feeling like I was supposed to put up this front and make the world believe that I was the smartest man in the room at all times,
Hmm.
that I had all the answers, that nothing could phase me, that life was just supposed to be easy because that's what it means to be gifted, right? You're supposed to be better than everybody else, or smarter than everybody else, or have more answers than everybody else. And going through education, um, in my journey, I became a school leader, was working in elementary schools and principals, and I was a assistant superintendent, and was in this situation where people were constantly coming to me for answers that I didn't have. And I was, at the time, I was working as a school leader in a turnaround school. That's what they called it, a school that was struggling, high poverty. 40% of the kids' parents were in jail. And I felt like, there was part of me that had this savior mentality, that I was supposed to be there to try to change everything. And I was supposed to be there to come in, riding this horse, and everybody was just going to follow my lead, and getting resistance and people pushing back, not seeing the change and not seeing the results as fast as I thought that I would see the results. Still seeing amazing progress and changing kids' lives, but
That
getting
wasn't
constant
enough.
pushback. Yeah,
Yeah.
constantly getting pushback and feeling like, man, maybe I am not as good as I thought I was. And for the first time in my life, starting to have that realization that, wow, this is hard. It's not going to be easy. I'd been just given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity prior to then, but this was the first time where I was looking myself in the mirror every day thinking, I don't have the answers. I don't know what to do. I'm not making a difference. I was looking at my own kids at the time thinking, am I even making a difference in their lives? I'm working 18 hours a day for what? And just got myself to the point where I said, I don't know how to work through this. I don't know how to work through this. I'm not making a difference. I don't have value. And luckily, I look back on it now and say, man, I was so wrong. Um, I do have value. I did have value. I was making a difference, but not in the way that I was assessing it at the time.
Mm. So when the incident happened where you went to the bridge, you were a principal at a school at the time, and you also had four kids, or did you not have all four?
Yeah, I had my fourth kid was about a year and a half old at the time.
Oh man.
And yeah, I was a principal of a school, and this was November. It was the week before Thanksgiving.
S-
Um,
So would
and
you say at the time that nobody in your life had any clue that you were going through this? Like, were you good
oh,
at
not at all.
keeping it? Were you good at keeping it like putting on this front that everything's good, but deep inside it was you were in turmoil?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Hmm.
I put on the biggest facade you could imagine. I mean, you and I we knew each other back then, and you had
Yes.
no idea. I
Nope.
was posting on social media. I put on social media all these things to try to be provocative and to poke the bear and to try to seem like I'm this big difference maker and I'm willing to take any punches that come my way. But in reality, it was a dance, man. It's like the kid that flips the table in the classroom just to put up
Yeah.
a defense and a smoke screen. That's what I was doing. I
Yeah.
was putting up this big smoke screen, walking around my campus with the most swagger you could find. My shoes were polished, the fanciest ties you could find. Nobody had a clue. Well, in reality, I was going to school every day, and I had a couple of incidents where I had passed out at work just because the stress was getting too much for me. I had one day at work where a couple of teachers found me in a back stairwell just crying. And
No way.
just because life was just getting so hard for me, I didn't know how to overcome things, but I would always dismiss it and I would always brush it away and act like it was not a big deal. Where on the inside, I was crumbling. I was crumbling and I wasn't even necessarily aware of how hard it was getting. I just kept thinking, it'll get better. It'll get better. Magic will happen. It always does. Everything always works out, but it wasn't. And I
Mm.
just got to a breaking point and decided let's go for a drive. And that's where it took me.
What did you do? So I'm just curious, like when you came off of that bridge and you got back in your car, what did you do? What were your next steps?
Honestly, nothing really dramatic changed. I got in my car, drove home,
Drove
snuck
home.
in the house, and went to bed. Woke up the next day and just acted like nothing happened.
Wow.
Um, and that next day, I remember asking myself, did I really do that? Was it a dream? Is this reality? Uh, what do I do next? Thinking, okay, it was just a little blip on the radar. I'm not really one of those people that would do that, am I? Um, but as time went on, and again, it took me 6 weeks to finally start sharing. I went through the holiday season, November, December,
Mhm.
and started to unravel a little bit more. And got myself. I'm a big believer in New Year's resolutions. I know they're symbolic in nature and they often don't stick, but I made myself a commitment 2018 to just start being real. And that was like the turning point. I said, okay, I got to just start opening up and
Mm.
sharing my journey. And in 2018, so 6 weeks after that, is finally when I started to tell people some of the details. Still, very few people understand the full story and all the thoughts that were going through my head and the defeatist attitude I had. A lot of people looked at me and thought, there's no way Schmittou would think that. He's one of the cockiest, most arrogant SOBs on the planet. But in reality,
I know the
it's
feeling.
all facade, man. Right? Sometimes it's just a smokescreen where you put it up there so that people can't get too far inside. That was me. I was a running back with the best stiff arm ever, man. People got close, I would just push them away.
Hmm.
I grew up as a military brat where I moved all the time. I went to 16 different schools growing up. Great at making
Hmm.
acquaintances, but never really made friends. And I look back on it, I try to blame it on the bouncing around, but in reality, it's I didn't want anybody to get inside of me. I didn't want anybody to know what was really happening in the fears, the doubts, the the worries that I had. I just wanted people to stay on the surface and see the stuff I put out there without them having
Yeah.
to find them things themselves.
16 different schools you went to?
16 different schools, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what did you learn from that? I mean, that had to be some kind of process too, right? Because I would imagine, one of the things that I often think about kids is, when you have kids that bounce around, they put up walls because in their mind, it's easier to not get close to a person than it is to get close to a person and have that ripped away. And if
Yeah.
you kind of go into a situation knowing it's going to get ripped away, not by your doing, but by the circumstances that you're just born into. What's that like?
Yeah, so for me, anytime I would go into a school, I knew that I was either going to be leaving soon or somebody else was going to be leaving soon because, in these military schools, it's not like we're all coming and going at the same time. It's constant turnover. So there's constant shuffling. I say that I'm a great politician. I am great at shaking hands and kissing babies, man. I can schmooze with the best of them. I'm also that guy in school where when I would start a new school, I made a lot of instant friends that were females. The girls always liked the new guy, but the guys wanted nothing to do with me. I was competition. I was this new guy coming in to try to take some playing time away on the sport teams. I was
Sure.
whatever. I was the enemy,
Yep.
and that was a trait that I continued to embrace literally up until 2017, where I even became an educator. True story. I don't know if I've ever shared this with anybody, but because I wanted to be surrounded by people that I knew that I could embrace and be surrounded by a career that was filled with women, so that I didn't feel like I had to go out there and be competitive with a bunch of guys.
Hmm.
And that's led me to where I am today.
Get out. So that's why you went into education.
Oh, there's a story behind this, man. And
Tell.
so I actually went to college to go into broadcasting. I
Me
don't
too.
have I don't have the Brian Mindler voice. Where side note,
Yeah.
man, you and Snoop Dogg need to take over and just do some play-by-play. Snoop Dogg just did that last Tyson
I
Roy
know he
Jones fight.
did.
You
He
you
was
two would
great.
be you two would kill
How
it,
good
man.
was he?
So
He's the best. He's the
that
best.
was amazing.
He's the
Yeah, if we can
best.
get the
I'd smoke
Mindler
a
Snoop
blunt
Dogg
with him
show
too.
going, let's do it. No, but I went into college to go into broadcasting. Ended up taking a couple courses though, where I had to wake up at 8 a.m. on Fridays to watch black and white movies, and thought, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. Went and did some soul searching in the quad of the school I went to, and saw, true story, I saw a bunch of women, I, 19, 20-year-old girls walking into a building. And I thought, wow, where are they going? It's either fashion design or teaching. Let's roll the dice here. It happened to be teaching, and the next thing you know, I was switching majors and became an educator.
I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the labels, like the gifted label, and like having gone through that and having, worked in schools for a while and then experienced what you did. What are your thoughts on that in general?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a big believer. We assume the good and doubt the bad. When we put labels on people, I know we're doing it for reasons that we think are good. So I'll put that out there. However, I
Mm,
am yet to find a label that has been good for anybody, anywhere, at any time.
mm,
Whether it's a label where you're saying this person is, air quotes, better than
mm,
others, or that this is a person who is struggling compared to others. It puts us in this comparison game where people are put in these boxes that are limiting. And that's true in all walks of life, whether it's as adults, when you start getting labels, we've seen all kinds of people saying, I'm just a teacher. You carry the label of teacher. Or are you an administrator? Are you a leader? Are you a principal? Whatever the label is, puts a limit and a box around us where we feel like we're supposed to live within the identity of the label, as opposed to living within your
mm.
own identity and who you are. So you'll hear me preaching against labels as often as I can.
So when you were a principal, did you have that though? Because I mean, every school that I go to, they have some kind of honor roll or honor roll system, and I'm with you, right? Like I don't make any bones about it that if it were up to me, I would abolish honor roll. I think it overall it's destructive for kids. Like I understand why people do it, and I also don't. I always tell teachers, I always tell them, I don't advocate you trying to get rid of it. Because certain administrators will start convulsing but I just got my new outfit for awards night and freaking out. And so, so you want to be real careful about that. But, that's when I invented my own list. I was teaching self-contained. I don't know if you've heard this, where I invented my own list called On a Roll, right?
Yeah.
That 3 words, on a roll, for kids that are improving. And that's because I was just annoyed. They would always have on a roll and my kids never made it. And my kids would work hard. Like I had kids that were busting their butt, but their numbers, their scores weren't where they needed to be to make that list. So I just created my own list. And on a roll was just for kids that are improving. And you can make it for anything. Literally, if you held the door open for someone without being told, or you help somebody pick up papers that they dropped, or you helped a teacher bring something to their car like that they couldn't carry themselves, you were on a roll, and it didn't matter what your grades were. And so I tried to add to it instead of taking it away. But if it were up to me, I would take it away.
Yeah, and you're preaching to the choir here, man. And honestly, that is something that I work hard to try to eliminate no matter where I am. Yeah, we talked about when I was a student going to 16 different schools. I'm in my 21st year in education, and I've been in 7 different
Wow.
schools. Plus, now I'm not in a K-12 school anymore. I'm kind of doing my own thing on the side. So there's some freedom with that, but there's also the responsibility of when you go somewhere new to work hard to try to make the changes that matter most. And going back to my first administrative gig, I went in and that was exactly what we attempted to do. And I say we, me and the posse that I was able to recruit to try to get rid of honor roll, to try to get rid of even letter grades for kids that
Mm,
carry that stigma. Are you an A student, a B student, a C student, whatever? Those labels carry so much weight and
yeah.
power and leverage, and it's disgusting. Um, However, there's always somebody that becomes the hill that they are willing to die on. And
Yeah.
in 2 of my last 3 districts, that person was the superintendent of the schools who said, no, my own personal kid is an honor roll kid. My own personal kid is trying to become valedictorian.
Yeah.
And you're taking away my own credibility as a parent if you're going to remove that label from my child. And it becomes a fight. And sometimes you got to decide, is that the fight you're willing to have? And unfortunately or fortunately for me, it always is. So
Interesting. So you do fight that fight.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was at a middle school and we got
Hence why
rid
you're
of
not in a school anymore these days, probably.
well, honestly, so it's interesting. I don't know how many people are familiar with Lavana Roth. She's one of my favorite people on the planet, but Lavana Roth gave me some advice once, and she said, oftentimes you're only an expert 50 miles from home, which is so true. And you can probably recognize that too. Sometimes when you go to the school that your own kids are at and you try to say some things, people look at you like, who are you, dude? You're
Yeah,
just a
yeah, yeah.
parent of whatever. But
Yeah.
50 miles from home, people will look at you and be like,
Yeah,
oh, dude,
yeah.
you're this expert. I'll listen to you now.
Yeah.
The same thing was
Yeah.
true for me, that there's so much that I could do within the school systems that I was working in to create change or to have the conversations. But now being able to have those conversations with people worldwide and across the country, sometimes I'm able to get a little bit more traction and people are more willing to listen. Sometimes people will reach out to me and say, hey,
Totally.
can you poke that bear and say the things I want to say, but I can't say because I work here? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's have the conversation. So
Yeah. the phrase that I've heard is along those lines, you're never an expert in your own backyard, right? So
Yeah.
you're never an expert in and that's true, no question. And I felt that more than ever with my own district here, with going to virtual learning and then back to in school and then back to virtual. And I just want to shake some people and be like, wake up, man, like
Right.
wake up, like look at what we're doing to kids, like come on, but no one cares here what I have to say. It's probably why I'm moving.
But what you just articulated is the reality in a lot of schools. There's a lot of lip service of, yeah, we're listening, but then a decision is made, and then they start to listen to somebody else, and then they say, oh, is that what people think? So they change, and then they listen to somebody else and say, oh no, maybe that's what people believe. So they change again. That's why this pendulum has swung so much in 2020 with schools, because decisions were made by the people in the fancy suits and the fancy shoes. And then they start listening to one group, maybe it's the teachers, and they say, oh, no, we didn't listen to them. Let's change it up. Oh, now we need to listen to the parents. Okay, so let's change again. Oh, now we need to listen to the students. Let's listen to that. Or the medical community, or what we're changing the people we're listening to and becoming these sailboats that are just drifting in the wind.
Yeah, but I agree, but at some point you got to start listening to everybody, because right now the way where we sit right now, everybody's saying kids should be in school. I don't know any expert right in the well, I don't care what political aisle, they're all saying the best place for kids is in school. And many school districts, they're still not in school, and we're the only place, dude. Every other country that's shut down, their kids are in school. It's maddening to me. Maddening. Kids need to be in school, and they absolutely need to have at least the option to be in school, right? Now, if a parent chooses to want to keep their kid home, God bless them. That's your own right as a parent. But to not have the option to go to school, like, what is going on?
Yeah, one thing I love about you, Brian, is that you have not. No. We can go anywhere you want to go, man. Is that you don't change your opinions. I mean, we had this talk back in March and April, and you were saying the
Way
same
more.
thing.
I feel more this way than I did then.
Right.
I feel more. I just, what's funny is I just got a message from somebody on Twitter who listened to that podcast. It's funny. And they messaged me and they said, hey, I just listened to the Lasting Learning podcast, which is Dave's podcast, and I was a guest on it back in March, and I was saying the same thing back in March. Like I've been on this train the whole way, right? I've been consistent. I've had a lot of hate from people, but I've been consistent that I think schools should be like airports. Schools should be like hospitals. Schools should be like the grocery store. Schools don't close. You don't close schools, period. End of story. You make that commitment, and I will vote for anyone anywhere who makes that commitment. If you make the commitment to me that you won't close schools, I will vote for you. I don't care what political party you're in. I don't care if you're a male, if you're a female, whatever you are, if you make that commitment, because it is preposterous to me at this point that we as a society, as an educational community, are okay with it. And not only are we okay with it, a lot of us are pushing it. There's a lot of educators with huge followings on social media that are pushing the narrative of keeping schools closed. And I'm at the point right now, the only way you could feel this way is if you don't have children of your own. If you have school age children of your own, which I do, right? A first grader and a third grader, it's impossible to believe right now, in my opinion, that you don't think they should be in school. John's going to kill me for this, my producer.
It's all good. Kill me. I'm going to throw this out there. Mendler for Secretary of Ed. Let's do this. Start preaching it. But you know what? Take this to a whole nother level. So I'm sitting here right now and I can look outside my window. It's snowing. Can I tell you right now that we have a couple of schools around me that closed for a snow day today? Mind you, we are fully virtual. I'm looking at my Wi-Fi bandwidth, hoping that it can maintain right now, because I've got 4 kids that are fully remote because that's the decision that was made. And there are snow days right now. I'm just like, who is making these decisions, and who are they making them for right now? It's obviously not for the kids. It's
maddening.
It's mind-boggling.
So your kids are fully remote right now? Your 4 kids? Fully remote. 5 days a week, fully remote. No, not even an option of in-school learning?
Correct. So back in June, July, whatever it was, we were given a survey where we got to decide how do we want things to look for our kids. We said, put them back. Let's go face-to-face. We got this. 2 days before the school year started, got an email from the superintendent that said, sorry, negotiations haven't gone well with the teachers union, and we're now going to do a hybrid model. So, but that's not going to start until the end of October. So I was able to start transitioning some of my kids back in October for about 3 weeks. They were able to go to school for 2 days a week. And then we got the notification right before Thanksgiving that everything was going to go back to full remote. My high school kid has never once stepped foot in his high school. He's a freshman right now, never been in the high school. My kindergartner is learning about school with headphones on and a Chromebook, and 100% online from 8:45 to 2:30 every day.
Maddening. It's maddening. Look, and I mean, I might have told you this, right? Like when we went remote last year, I had, and again, I got killed on social media for this too, because I told the truth, right? God forbid you tell the truth. If you say anything not nice about any teacher, right? They hammer you. But I had the two juxtapositions in my home, right? I had my daughter's teacher teaching kindergarten, teaching an hour and a half live on the computer every day. And it was spectacular, but no matter how spectacular it was, and it was good, she was tremendous. Let me be clear about that. I had her as a guest on my podcast. That's how impressed with her I was. But you just can't replace the stuff that school provides, right? Especially for that age. I mean, the stuff that kindergarteners need to learn, which is like how to wait in line and how to be patient and how to have somebody bump into you and not get annoyed and say, please excuse me, please and thank you and excuse me, and like all of those things were missing. And like, the 3+3 is important. Like I think that's important, but that's not really why I send my kid to school. Like I mean that stuff I can do at home, right? It's the socialization piece that kids are missing, along with messing with them, man. Like the roller coaster ride of messing with kids and their lives the way we have as a society. I just, how I feel about this, man. I think, you let kids live their lives. Like adults should have to adjust to kids, not the other way around.
Yeah, there are so many things that I think we could fix relatively easily. But this all the stuff happening right now with schools, I've said it before and I'll say it again. A lot of this stuff they're not new struggles. All 2020 has done is magnify things that were already in existence. We were talking before we went live about Florida, or where the bridge was, and where I used to live, and where I know some good people are on their way to live. One of the things that used to frustrate me about Florida, and it's not just Florida, I'm just using them as the example, is the teacher certification process, for example, in Florida, is all about a teacher's ability to pass a test showing that they have content knowledge. That's it. That's it. If you want to become a teacher in Florida or Texas or a lot of other states, pass a test to show me that you know some stuff about content. Which is why people then make these decisions and say, well, teachers can just share that content with kids on any platform in any methodology, because that's all a teacher is they're a content pusher. Well, BS, that is not what school is about. School is about all that stuff that you just talked about. School is about the social, emotional. It's about building relationships. It's learning how to get along with people and follow rules and push back on rules and establish boundaries. That's what school is about. I mean, when we look back on our school experiences,
no doubt,
that's what we focus on. Look, the stuff that we were talking about early on, and the fact that I went to 16 different schools.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we didn't say, well, what was the transition like in content and curriculum? Were you able to master all the standards in 16 different schools? No, it was, how did you adjust socially to those changing dynamics? Because that's the stuff that matters. And we need to make sure that our teachers are getting that preparation, that we're making sure that we have the people in schools that understand that that is their job. Literally, that is your job. Yeah, content is important, curriculum is important, got it, good, but that is a byproduct of teaching students about life and how to live it successfully.
People over product, right?
Boom,
people. It's about people, right? Focus on people. And it's so true, because like when you go around a room of teachers and you ask them a simple question, like, what do you teach, right? What do you teach? They always answer social studies or third grade or, Spanish. They rarely answer people. I teach people. Oh, primarily I teach them Spanish. I work with them in social studies mostly, but I actually teach people. And as a special ed guy, that was all I was there to do, right? It's sort of like that, the concept of, do you kick out the kid because they got in the way of your content, or do you kick out the content because it's in the way of the kid, right? Yeah. Every teacher in America or in the world kicks something out of class every day, right? It's just, the question is, which one are you there to teach, right? Us special ed people, we're there to teach kids. And I mean, we kick out content all the time. And I always say to people, like, Want to know why? Here's a little secret. We don't really like it anyway, right? Like I never went to school because I was excited about Shakespeare. Like I mean, I'll put up with it, right? As a special ed guy, we kind of have to do a million things, but it wasn't why I was there, right? I was there to help you with your social skills, with your ability to cope in the world and with people that you didn't like, and and with friends that you were having issues with. To me, that was the most fun part about being a teacher by far.
Right. No, so spot on. I mean, I feel like I could just build off of that in a thousand different directions. And I want to put this caveat out there. I am a standards-based guy. I mean, that is truly where I make my money right now, is teaching people about standards-based grading and standards-based learning and all that. However, the thing that often gets left out of that is the primary focus behind standards-based grading is that you focus on the priorities and you focus on the focus. It's not about covering a bunch of stuff that's irrelevant. You know, you and I, we're both dads. And we know this as dads, we want our kids to have happy, successful lives. However, as a dad, I am not going to teach my kids how to tie a bow tie at the expense of teaching them about respect and responsibility. I'm not going to teach them to write in cursive, probably ever, at the expense of teaching them how to ride a bike or to be kind to their brothers and sisters. I prioritize the stuff that I want my kids to know. And it's the responsibility of schools not to step in and say, okay, well, we're going to teach your kids a bunch of different stuff. The job of schools is to support the same kind of thing, to lean in and to support me as a dad to say, help me teach my kids the stuff that matters most in a social environment that I can't provide to my kids. Lean in and support me. Don't take them a different direction.
What would you say is like the number one or number two things that you learned from a social aspect by being in 16 different schools?
Oh, that's a big one. Kids are kids, period. You know, I lived in Hawaii and Cuba and Florida, Virginia, Michigan. I've lived all over the place, and kids are kids. We talk about the basic needs that everybody has. You know, there's all the conversation now about Maslow before Bloom's and all that.
Yeah.
We talk about food, shelter, water, but a basic need that often gets left out is the need to feel important. I mean, that is a driving need that every single person has and every single kid has. And as a new kid in schools, I had that same need. I needed to feel important, and I had this need to be recognized, to feel valued, to be seen as who I was, not as the new kid or whatever the label people wanted to throw on me. I wanted to be seen, and all kids want to be seen. All kids want to be seen by their peers. All kids want to be seen by their parents, want to be seen by their teachers. Make people feel seen, valued, and important for who they are.
Is there any, do you have, and this might put you on the spot a little bit, but
Yeah.
do you have a recollection of any like one teacher from one place that made a big impact on you, and how did they do it in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, Mrs. E. Foster, and she's Mrs. E. Foster because in that same school there was a Mrs. B. Foster, but Mrs. E. Foster,
Not related?
not related. You know, at the time I was 10 years old or so, and I had Miss E. Foster. At the time, I swear I thought she was 90. She was probably 50, you know, but I thought she was this 90-year-old woman. She was strict as could be. But what I loved about her is that she actually came to my house. We lived in military housing. And when I was brand new, she came to our house just to shake hands with my mom and dad and meet them. She didn't give them a phone call and say, hey, come meet me at school. She showed up unannounced one day at my house just to shake hands with my mom and dad.
Wow.
And I remember I wasn't nervous about it. I wasn't scared. I just thought, this is the coolest thing ever.
Huh.
My teacher just came to my house. And I'm sure she did that for every new kid. It was probably just what she did. But in my mind, she did this for me. And it blew me away. And I was hooked. Miss E. Foster was it for me. And she is truly my hero to this day. She was absolutely amazing.
Where was that? Where were you living at the time?
That was in Norfolk, Virginia. So if anybody knows Miss E. Foster from Norfolk, Virginia at Camp Allen Elementary School, let me know. I'd love to.
Well, you never know these days.
Right.
I mean, these days it's just easier than ever to find everybody. You got to just be, sometimes you got to be careful because it's almost too easy to find.
True story.
You know? Wow, that's I mean, that's cool. What do you think about home visits? That's a topic, especially now with virtual learning. You know, I've found the biggest question that I get, at least right now, is about student engagement. It's about getting kids to show up, right? Show up online, be a part of the lesson. And and I've heard from, I don't know if you know Emily Pascal. I had her on
Mhm.
here, and she talked about doing home visits, and she actually gave a really nice step-by-step guide for how to do it. She talked about bringing somebody with you, and you can be outside, but she was a huge proponent of it, and I agree. Like, I think it can be a really powerful tool. And I think really often, because most people don't do it, right? To
Yeah.
reach kids no one else reaches, you have to do things no one else is willing to do. And I feel like that's one of those things.
Yeah, I think again, I want to throw a caveat onto this and preface this and say, yeah, teachers, I know that you're working super hard, you're doing above and beyond, you're working hard, but again, it's about that focusing on the focus and reaching your potential. I think as educators, we know that parents have tremendous influence on kids, which is why we bitch and complain about the parents of little Johnny and little Susie in the staff lounge. And we say that kid is a product of their environment. Yeah, I got it. So then let's go reach that product. Let's go reach that environment and try to change that environment a little bit and maximize our potential and our time. Going back to my time in Florida at that turnaround school, you can see this on my Twitter page profile right now. My picture on my Twitter profile is me swinging on some swings in the neighborhood of where my school was. My school served three housing projects. I said 40% of the kids had at least one parent in jail. 90% of the kids were free lunch, not reduced lunch, but free lunch.
Yep.
It was an impoverished area. So every Friday afternoon, I would just go hang out on the swings in the park and be this creeper dude where the parents would come out and just talk to me on the swings. They wouldn't come to my school, but they would come hang out with me on the swings. They would just talk to me on their turf. We got rid of parent-teacher conferences that had to take place during school hours in our school building where 8% of the parents would show up. And we said, let's do parent-teacher conferences at
No way.
Chick-fil-A, where it's a neutral territory now and parents will show up. And guess what? They did. We went from 8% of parents showing up to 80%. Meet them on their turf. All parents want to see the best for their kids. So meet them where they're at. Meet them on neutral territory where you're not in this high, mighty place of importance. Reach out, shake hands, kiss babies, support the parents, and they will support the kids.
And you do it at Chick-fil-A, everybody's showing up.
Boom!
I
There,
mean,
you are
right?
so right, man.
That's the spot. They just opened one near my house.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Which in New York, we didn't really have Chick-fil-A. It just got here. It basically just got here recently. I'm a huge fan. I mean, I've
Yeah,
eaten it on the road a million times in the Detroit airport. They got one. That airport's a mess right now, though, by the way. Have you been through there in a while?
I've avoided that airport like the
I
plague.
flew through there. So I've only flown, right? Between January 1st and March 15th, I flew 82 flights this year. Between March 15th and now, I've flown 6 flights. And
Wow.
and a couple times through Detroit. And they have 23. I was told this by somebody that works there. They have had 23 stores that sell, like, water and all that stuff. 17 of them are closed. 17. They have
Wow.
like whatever left, 6 left. It's crazy what's happened to the airports and the airline industry right now. It's insane.
Yeah. Welcome to
Whole
Michigan.
different world.
So much we could talk about that.
It's true. That's true. So what else, man? How's life? So you got your books. So tell a little bit about. So okay, take me
Yeah.
now to where you're at now, right? So we kind of talked about your past and your struggles, and how did that lead to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I was at this place with my career. Personally, I guess we could talk personally too and professionally, where I felt like things were always just going to be handed to me because of the reputation I had. If I just go out there and do a good job, doors will magically open for me. And it happened for a long time. But then I got myself to this place where I realized that sometimes when doors open, because I am Dave Schmittou and I make stupid decisions and make stupid mistakes, oftentimes I just walk through any door that's presented to me, as opposed to making sure that the door actually leads to greatness. So this past spring when COVID hit, I took advantage of it. And I have no problem saying that I took this obstacle and turned it into an opportunity. And I said, there are a lot of people that need the stuff that I'm able to share, and I'm going to take control of my own destiny, my own future, my own path. And I tracked down an opportunity where right now I get to teach at Central Michigan University, my alma mater, and I teach there full time. But higher ed land is a much different space where when we say full time, it's you're an independent contractor and do what you need to do. So I get to teach college kids, future educational leaders, a couple days a week, and then spend the rest of my time talking to amazing people like you, writing, speaking, helping districts and schools navigate all aspects of education, whether it's grading and assessment or leadership and sharing my journey with others and embracing the power of humility with power and hoping to change the system slowly but slowly.
Is there any kind, are you seeing any kind of change in the higher ed landscape for how we're educating teachers with this now, like with the pandemic? And I personally think virtual learning will be here forever. I don't think it's going away. I think it will be, I think I've made very clear, I think kids should be in school and I think school should be an option. When I say that, I also believe distance learning is good for a lot of kids. Let me be clear about that. My son is an example, right? My third grader has excelled and he's upstairs right now and he likes it. He goes 2 days a week and he not right now. They just shut down again. They're going to apparently reopen in a couple days, whatever. But overall it's been really good for him. You know, he likes it. He's not a super overly social kid. He's got a stutter and so he likes to be home. He's a homebody, likes to be with his mom, and you know they do a lot of work together at the kitchen table or whatever, and it's been good for him. So I think that will always be an option, and I think, you know, I'm hoping higher ed will start to prep teachers for that, because I think that's going to be a real sort of, you know, side part of education going forward. It's kind of like, if you think about it, right? Like if somebody would have said to you 9 months ago, did you Zoom today? Like, or if you would have said to me 9 months ago, did you Zoom today? I would have been like, no, I'm not in a hurry. Like, where was I Zooming to? You know what I'm saying? Like, and today's, if someone says that, it's a verb. It's like Googling something. It's, you know what I mean? It's become a part of our society. And what, interestingly, also, I actually believe that it will forever alter the landscape of professional development for educators, right? For conferences. Like, you'll never see an ASCD conference again with 3,000 people. That will, in person, that will never happen, because why would you, right? If you're a district leader in Australia, are you really going to send 15 teachers to the United States to go to a conference when now you can press a button and have it come to your living room? Like, why would you spend that kind of money? So I think there's certain industries that are altered forever because of this.
Yeah, I think all industries are altered forever. You know, as a runner, I would argue even the big marathons are going to be forever changed. When the London Marathon was able to sell 45,000 virtual running bibs this year, 45,000 people just said, "I'll go run a marathon on my own. I don't need to show up and deal with the porta potty situation." That, I mean, it's changing everywhere.
And they counted toward the London Marathon.
Yeah.
So it count, like, so your time count, of course, and how much more money can they make?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the world is changing. But to your original question about universities and colleges, I'm going to try to tread lightly, but I think you know me well enough that my answer will be real.
Why are you treading lightly?
Because I still have health benefits I got to try to secure.
Okay. Got it.
Here's the unfortunate truth. Academia is much different than the real world. Higher ed is a much different place. And here's the reality of something that I'm experiencing right now. In academia, it's so much politics. It's all about who likes you and who do you like and how can we maintain the status quo amongst ourselves. And a prime example is a responsibility of my job beyond teaching. There's three buckets. There's teaching, there's service, where you sit on a bunch of committees and organizations and make decisions, and then there's research. Research, however, doesn't count writing books, doesn't count speaking at conferences. It's getting stuff in peer-reviewed journals and in publications, which sounds good until you start to realize what all a peer-reviewed journal is other people that do the same work that you do, that sit around and read your stuff and say, yep, I agree with that stuff. And because I agree with it, through my perspective, we're going to put this in a journal, which then becomes the gospel for all others for all time. And that's the struggle, is that it's universities that are driven on this peer-reviewed mindset, which perpetuates the status quo, that continue to make the decisions for what education and what schooling will look like going forward, as opposed to people in the trenches and on the ground saying this is what we need, and it being a market-driven approach. It's really this top-down, where we're the academics, we know what's best for kids. We got the research to prove it, which we wrote ourselves.
Right, and then we reviewed ourselves.
Exactly. Right. So that's the real struggle, because my mindset, my mentality, my way of doing things isn't necessarily a perfect fit. It's very difficult to poke the bear and get people to think outside of what's always been done in these big institutions that drive the way things are going to continue to be done.
No doubt. And you have to have thick skin if you're willing to do it. And it's, it's a tough spot to be in. It really is.
Yeah,
Especially, I felt that way with social media. I have some strong opinions on what I think, and I've really held back on there a lot because I don't feel like dealing with it, truthfully. Like, I don't feel like dealing with, a million comments and, the stress of it. It's exhausting. And so you're just like, whatever. Like, but it's kind of like that concept of picking your battles. And, we
right.
know that as parents that we have to do that all the time. And I kind of feel like it's the same professionally.
That's it. You got to figure out, are my words going to change anybody's opinion? And whose opinion really needs to be changed? And how do I form a conversation with that person or those people? Because you're right. I mean, social media is very rarely going to change anybody's mind. Even
Right.
algorithms in and of
Right.
themselves of how social media works, it's the self-perpetuating. You only get to see the people that you agree with. So when
Right.
somebody inserts their way into the stream that you disagree with,
Right. Right.
you will leave that social media platform, and the social media giants don't want you to leave the platform.
Right.
So they will continue to just let you see the people you
The
agree
social
with.
dilemma. You're talking about the
Yeah,
social dilemma, right? Did you see it on
I
Netflix?
did. Yeah, yeah,
Crazy, crazy.
yeah, for sure.
I know, and it's amazing how that, when you see that, it makes so much sense. Like, because you see people are like, how, if you disagree with someone, people are like, how could you even think that way? Like, and what they show you is,
Everybody
well,
thinks
because
this way. Yeah, yeah,
that's the information they're getting, right?
that's it.
Crazy. It's scary times a little bit when you realize that's how the thoughts work these days.
Yeah, it's the truth. It's the truth. Thank
Anyway.
God for people like us, right?
I guess, man. What a crazy landscape. What the reason I started the our discussion with the question about your bridge, the bridge is I went through a period the last, I would say, like April, May, like end of March, April, May, where I was as depressed as I've ever felt in my life. I really never really felt the way that I did during those months. It was an unbelievable struggle for me every day. And it was basically like, COVID hit me and my business really hard. I was, metaphorically speaking, running 100 miles an hour, right? Booked every day to different cities. And literally it came to a screeching halt. And on top of it coming to a halt, right? I didn't get paid, right? So you know how that is. I mean, when you're an independent contractor, you get paid when you work. And so people started canceling, and my whole life changed. Like, I think COVID changed some people's lives more than it did others, right? My brother's a doctor. It didn't really change his life, right? His life continued to just kind of go on. I mean, he wears a mask, but other than which he actually already did because he's a doctor, but in general, right? His life didn't really change very much. He's a cancer doctor. Cancer patients are still coming, and but my life, right? I was in conference rooms in front of big groups, on airplanes and hotels, in sort of all the places that the world hit, and that got hit really hard. And and then on top of all that, it was being home, and my kids were home, right? So, like, I wasn't used to being home, and I certainly wasn't used to being home with my kids home. And it was
Right.
like every day, and I literally, my life was upside down, and I was depressed, man. I felt just like I didn't want to get out of bed, and I was just, and so I still do feel that way sometimes. Like, I still do, because I feel like I don't know where the world's going with my business, right? Like, I don't know. I'm, knock on wood, it's picked back up, and I'm actually relatively busy virtually, which is cool, right? Because it's kind of like negatives turn to positives, right? I'm able to be home and work from this chair and still get paid, and live my life now as a dad, which is super cool, right? I've never been able to do that. And I think within all negatives there are silver linings, but that level of despair and depression, I know what you mean by waking up and putting on a facade and, like, smiling for the camera and letting everyone around you believe that you're doing well. And that post hit me hard because I read it at a time where I was feeling a lot of that. Like, I wasn't going to jump off a bridge. Like, I wasn't there, to be clear. And that's just because of my kids. Like, I know my daughter would rather have me home with zero money and $0 and zero food than gone at all, right? Then completely gone from her life. And my son, I'm not as sure as much, but my daughter for sure. And so for me, that wasn't really an option, but it really hit me hard because I was like, man, I felt like it was really cool that you put that out there and that you weren't afraid to be who you are. And I'm sometimes afraid to be who I am. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Brian. There was a lot of fear in making that story public for a lot of reasons. Number one, I was afraid of what people were gonna start thinking about me. Were people gonna look at me and say, "Oh, I'm soft," or is Schmittou just this desperate attention whore, and he will say and do anything and put anything out there just to try to manipulate emotions from people? And that fear was very, very real. Um, and I'm glad that you asked that question up front, and I'm glad that when you reached out and said, "Hey, you want to go live?" You didn't tell me, "Hey, and this is what we're going to talk about," because
No,
I
right.
would have been very worried about saying yes, because I don't want to ever present myself as I'm going to use that situation to just try to get some sympathy and support and attention, because that's who I was, honestly. Back then, I would say and do things to get attention and to try to get a stir. And if it didn't generate enough attention, I would spiral and say, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? It's like that addict that's always looking for the next hit, the next fix. And I was always looking for that next hit, that next fix, so that I could bring attention to myself as having answers and being the center of attention. If it wasn't there, I would do something bigger and badder to try to get it. And it's been hard work for the last 3 years to dig myself out of that and say, nose down now. My job is just to amplify other people and to give other people as much credit as I possibly can, and to be that cheerleader on the side. And that's my newfound role right now, is to help support what other people need. It's not about me. So
The concept of the more you give, the more you get. It's kind
yeah,
of it's a concept in life, and we talk about that in addiction recovery all the time. The way to get more of anything in life is to give more of that same thing. And I think sometimes we forget that, right? We're always looking around for what's next for me. And the truth is, right, it's kind of like at the holiday time. I think you're 43, I'm 44. I think both of us are at the age where it's way cooler to give a holiday present than it is to get one. Like I'm
for
not
sure.
anti getting one either. Let me be clear. Like I'll take one, but I don't prefer it. Like you get to a certain age where you have enough stuff. Stuff is just more stuff for your house.
Yeah.
And but you see somebody else's face light up when you give to someone, and that feeling you get inside by knowing you created that for someone else is a really powerful feeling. And what's really cool is that feeling is always attainable, right? If you actually think about that on a daily basis. And it's kind of like, for teachers, it's instead of saying to a kid, "What did you do this weekend?" it becomes, "What did you do for someone else this weekend?" Right? Or like on a Friday, instead of "What are y'all doing this weekend?" it becomes, "What are y'all doing for someone else this weekend?" with
Yeah.
the goal trying to be to get them to think of other people first.
No, it's so good. And I want to put this out there for teachers and educators. I know that's the majority of people that are listening to this and watching this is teachers. I know we spend a lot of time talking about your why and why do you do what you do, but I'm going to caution you that your why should not be so that you can change the world. That's not what it's about. Your responsibility is to help that next generation go out there and change the world. We get burnt out because we put all this enormous pressure on all the stuff that we think that we are supposed to do, as opposed to looking at the next generation of kids and saying, how can I help this kid go out there and be that change agent? That's the difference maker right there. Your job is to facilitate the kids to be kids and to live their best lives, to celebrate their strengths and their passions. And then you are there to boost them up along the way. Your job is not to be the savior of all things at all times for all kids. Embrace your role and go out there and kill it being a cheerleader.
Yeah, and I want to leave it at that, because I don't think, I think that's a great way to end. I think sometimes, a lot of times I say to people, "Do you have any last bits of information for people?" But that was a great last bit. How can people stay in touch with you, find you, plug your books? Like, what do you want to tell everybody?
If you can
Your
figure out how to
podcast?
spell, yeah, if you can figure out how to spell my last name, you'll find me in all the places. So
Yeah.
two T's, John, two
Two
T's in
T's,
Schmittou.
two T's.
Schmittou. So it's at Dave Schmittou on Instagram, at Dave Schmittou on Twitter, schmittou.net, bit.ly/Schmittou. Literally, Schmittou is, if you can figure that out, then you'll find me.
All right, Dave, I appreciate it, man. It was awesome. Great catching up with you as always.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
All right, everybody else, don't forget to rate, don't forget to download, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to shout us out on social media. Appreciate all of you listening. I'll be back with you same time next week. Until then, I say peace. I'm out of here. Great job, man. That was great.
That was fun. That was fun.
Hit pause real quick.